everybody, to another episode of Quarantined Coaches. We are with New Jersey Institute of Technology, Coach Deleo. Did I pronounce that right?
Deleo, yes.
You've probably heard them all, right?
Oh, over the years, I've gotten everything.
Yeah. So you look pretty young, man, for a coach at the Division I level. I mean, not to say what they should look like, but how old are you?
I'm only 26 years old.
Only, put the word only in front of it so you set yourself up. 20. How does a 26-year-old get to the Division I level? And you guys are what, a conference or Atlantic Sun team?
Correct. Yeah, it's been a little bit of a weird ride for me. You know, it's not your generic path to get here, but I've been lucky and spent a couple of years in pro ball and then came back and was lucky to get this opportunity at NJIT. And to compete at the A-Sun with super high academic kids every day.
NJIT, is it a place where kids have to study some sort of technical engineering type major, or do you offer everything?
It's not. We're not limiting in that factor at all. We are one of the best engineering and tech schools in the country, but we have many other options from a career standpoint as well, from a really highly regarded business school to theater to law. So you can go pretty well across the board, and as long as you've got the test scores and you can play baseball at a high level, where could be a spot for you.
Did you play there?
I did not. I'm from Massachusetts and grew up there.
Gotcha. So in talking to you, it was interesting. Now your baseball career went further than mine, and it sounds like by quite a bit. But it also, in kind of the conversation we had, we're both guys that wanted to be in baseball long term, but we're also realistic and at some point realized, okay, that's not going to be as a player. So kind of take me through a brief history of your career and when you realized, okay, it's not going to be as a player, and what did you do instead?
Yeah, I played Division III baseball, actually. Was not able to garner a scholarship coming out of high school. Found a school that worked really well for me, Bridgewater State University up in Massachusetts, down towards the Cape, and fell in love with the campus, with the coaching staff, and academically it was a really good fit. So was able to go and play for 4 years there. Spent one summer in the NECBL where I was around guys that were much better players than I was, which kind of helped me, realize that maybe playing at the big league level wasn't necessarily an option, because I think every kid really wants to do that from the time you're 3 or 4 years old, But at the same time, it allowed me to be realistic and to slide into the coaching side of things as fast as possible. So after I graduated from there, spent a summer down the Cape, actually, in Falmouth. Great staff, got to learn from Jeff Trundy and the bunch that runs things down there, and compounded that into a job with the Dodgers. So
wait, you were a high academic kid, correct?
Middle of the road.
Oh, okay. I thought you were saying, so NJIT, you got high academic kids, but I thought you were saying that you went the Division III route in a high academic. So
I'd like to use that for an excuse, but
yeah, I was going to say high academic and you went the coaching route. That would have been an interesting angle. So when you chose a Division III school out of high school, were you at any point disappointed that was the level you were going to play at?
I don't think disappointed is the right way to put it. Coming out of high school, I think everybody naturally thinks that you can go play at the Division I level and get a scholarship. But being realistic with myself, knowing how I stood up with teammates, with people from the state area, I was lucky to play at the Division III level, and I really embraced that decision. Like I said, I fell in love with the campus, with the coaching staff at that D3 level, and they had a lot of success having gone to College World Series in the past and being a competitor in the conference and region every year. So it wasn't stepping into somewhere that had never won games before. It was a winning culture, which is probably what helped me get to the coaching side, because I got to see and learn from some really good educators and coaches. But the Division III level is totally different, you know, than what we deal with now on an everyday basis. And I'm lucky because I got to play at the D3 level, and I've since coached at the 2 and 1. So seeing the full scope of things.
I know that I've learned that the Division III and the NAI level are really good, you know, places to be and opportunities. And what you need more than anything is that opportunity, right, to be on the field. That's the key to if you want to keep that career going. But I feel like kids still see that as their last resort. You know, like first, I want to go to a D1, a Power 5. Okay, that's not happening. Let me go to a mid-major. Okay, that's not happening. Let me go to a D2, right? I mean, was that how it was for you?
Not necessarily. I was looking at, you know, I had some interest from Division I schools, but, you know, like we encounter so often, it was in the Northeast especially, not fully funded programs, walk-on spots, and maybe the opportunity never to really see the field. So that was a real important part of my decision, was having the opportunity to compete for a starting position or to get at bats on an everyday basis. And weighing all my options, it ended up in the right spot, I think. I wouldn't change anything going back. But I think the Division III level as a whole gets a bad rap. But like we talk in the recruiting process to kids all the time, the academic side of things has to come first. You know, and if that happens to be at the Division III level or the Division I level, where, you know, I'm lucky to be coaching at a school that's super high academic with an Ivy League type education, a lot of the times that can help you make your decision, because as much as we'd all love to play pro baseball, not many of us have, two of us in this conversation in particular. So you've got to really line yourself up for what you're going to do after baseball. And I was lucky enough that that's still to be in the game.
And that was kind of my thing too, right? Like I was not willing to do what you did for a number of reasons. It wasn't that D3 baseball wasn't good enough for me, but I realized that it didn't make sense value-wise to go out of Florida, you know, take on really large student loans, understanding that at some point baseball is coming to an end on a playing side and probably not much past Division II, Division III baseball. But I wanted a career in the game, right? So I went the route of like clubby and equipment manager. You know, for you, when you said, okay, I want to stay in this game, what did you do to transition? What was your plan to stay in the game?
You know, I was really kind of willing to do whatever it took. I knew this was a career from the time that I was young. If I couldn't play, I wanted to coach. So I had committed to that. And, you know, I ended up with operations management and economics degrees in college. But on the grand scope of things, I don't think that it necessarily applies, other than, you know, the management skills and being able to understand some of the analytics things. So there's some correlation. But after I was done playing, it was time to put up or shut up and, you know, bust your ass for a couple of years and hope it gets you to where you want to be. You know,
I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say, you know, and a whole lot of young coaches and coaches around the country know that could mean quite a few years of not much money. And, you know, we all fully understand that grind, from being a volley for a couple of years to part-time coaching to, you know, being underpaid in professional baseball. It's kind of it's, you know, one of the hard parts of the job, but in the grand scheme of things, I'm still happy I did it. Wouldn't change anything, because in the long run, I'm confident that it'll work out and pay off.
Well, I feel like at 26 years old at the Division I level, you're doing all right. You seem ahead of the game, at least to some of the guys that I've been talking to that are, you know, at the height of their careers. You know, it sounds like it took them longer to kind of get up into the Division I ranks and start moving up the ladder. So what was your in? Like, what was your connection that got you in and got you to Division I coach at 26 years old?
Yeah, thankfully, I can just rely on the fact that hopefully sometimes that work ethic does pay off, and I like to tell myself that because unfortunately I didn't have any contacts that were high up in the game. I didn't have parents or family members that did stuff like that. And there's no shame in that if you do, and please take advantage of that opportunity. But it's not always the way that some people get in. So, it took the opportunity of going down to the Cape Cod League for a summer, not working for zero money, finding a place to live, luckily being connected with the host family. Those are the people that really can extend some careers in the game. It's the secondary people that aren't thought about very often. The host families, the family members that might reach out to help you for a place to live or find you that part-time job when you're, still working on a baseball field 60 hours a week, because you got to make money somehow. But that summer in the Cape, I was really lucky to be able to work with the coaching staff and pro scouts or amateur scouts on an everyday basis. And through a couple of them, I got a job with the Dodgers, having built good ties and got to go through the interview process.
What were you doing with the Dodgers?
So I was actually a video guy. I was looking to take whatever in I could get. Coming from a playing background and knowing that coaching was in my long-term goals, I was very lucky that the Dodgers were very open to helping me in that regard. So although being a video guy, they try to line you up in the best affiliate and with the best coaching staff so that it can be mutually beneficial. So,
and as a video guy at that age, that meant lugging a lot of equipment around, right?
Equipment, pretty much doing whatever the org needs you to. You're doing a ton of camera work. You're charting every pitch of the season.
It's miserable at first. People think video guy, and they're like, "Oh, cool, taking video, editing it, sitting in a dark room with the players, review." That's not how you start out there.
No, you definitely do those things, but that's secondary to some other stuff. It's you're the fifth coach or sixth coach in some organizations in a lot of regards, and having that playing background, I was lucky that meant, and being a catcher my whole life, that meant catching a lot of our bullpens pregame.
Video guy who catches bullpens also.
We were lucky to have probably the most talented roster the Midwest League's ever seen. So I'm lucky to be able to call some of those guys friends still and watch them on TV on an everyday basis. But I can tell you that catching bullpens from Walker Buehler is not fun when you're still a full year removed from the game. So
Right. No, I get it. My brother, when he came out of college, he's actually just this year got a coaching job with the Dallas Cowboys, which is insane. He's like a legit coach, but he started as a video guy with the Carolina Panthers. And I remember going to a game thinking like, oh, this is going to be awesome, right? And this was his first job out of college. And he had me basically helping him lug equipment from the field up to like the top upper deck of the stadium, right? Like where that little tiny shell of a concrete area is to film the game.
I got you. It's far from sexy or the first job that a lot of people want because you think you can go straight to the big leagues and coach. And honestly, sometimes it gets a bad rap. People might look down on that fact once in a while, but for me, it was just taking my opportunity to get in the game and start to build contacts and earn that respect, which thankfully got me to the position I'm in today.
I love it. So then your video guy, and looking at this, like this episode again, I don't see this as, the story of Anthony Deleo, and the same with Matt Dendecker the other day when we did it. These are the kinds of stories that kids can learn from. Like, how do I continue to have a place in the game? So that's why I'm interested. I know guys don't like to talk about themselves, but that's how I kind of view this. And I think there's a big learning experience here for a large group of kids. So I want to keep going kind of down this path. So the video guy, how does the video guy lead into coaching?
I think I got to learn a ton of the technology side of things being in that role. I was really lucky to be in the early stages and coming into the pro game when TrackMan, Rapsodo, things like that were in their early stages. So being that point of contact for an affiliate, you're kind of the guy that needs to know how to use all of it. So even I only had limited experience from the Cape going in, but it was trial by fire, you know? So you go to spring training for a month, and if you don't know how to do it when you leave, you're in trouble. So you go to that affiliate and you're getting calls from, you know, your president of baseball ops sometimes about, hey, what's this guy look like? What are his metrics? How are they correlating with certain things or performance? So from a data side of things, that was the best part about being on the video game, was getting to learn how to teach with video as well as learning some of those data and analytics numbers. But as for how it correlates with the actual coaching side of things that I'm doing now, that pregame time was what I lived for. You know, you hear about those 5 o'clock warriors that put on a great BP, but until you're throwing it or catching bullpens or hitting fungos or whatever it may be, you don't really know what the life of a professional baseball player is, or coach for that matter, until you're in it. So getting that full 2 seasons of you know, learning from some really good coaches and being around really good players, most of whom are either now or previously in the big leagues. I was lucky to have a great coaching staff too, and those are guys that I still stay in touch with and can ask questions and learn from to this day.
Let's go down that road with the analytics and in the technology. How was that technology being used at the very beginning to how you're seeing it used today?
So you got to think I was going into spring training with the Dodgers in 2016. So it was TrackMan had been in the league for maybe 2 or 3 years, but not really heavily used, and mainstream media and some organizations still weren't using it very heavily. Hell, they're still not. But, you know, with the Dodgers being a big market team, we were lucky that they invested a ton in it, right? So that meant investing in their workers as well. So I got to learn how to use those things. And at the start, it was a lot of the same thing that we're kind of dealing with in some college levels now, where people know what spin rate is, exit velocity, launch angle, things of that nature, but they don't know how to apply it or how to coach with it, because a lot of these coaches were older styled or played for years and years and were, you know, in their 50s, 60s, 70s, that numbers don't always correlate with feel. And those older guys have proven to be successful coaches by knowing how to evaluate talent and apply things with feel at the high levels. And when you're dealing with young guys that are either coming from Latin America or straight from the draft, or in our case now being out of high school and recruiting these young men, that a lot of them don't have that full feel for their bodies yet, especially at the mid-major level. So being able to use numbers and analytics and not overload them with data, but the real differentiator is how you apply those things. So being able to get through to each guy and make them understand what the numbers are saying rather than this is just the output.
Okay, so give me an example. You're the pitching coach, correct?
Correct.
Okay, so give me an example with your pitchers of how you're using the data and analytics, as you know, not just reading them, but then applying them.
Yeah, sure. Good one being that, you know, back in the day, that old-fashioned scout or coach, of which I had in pro ball as well, or, you know, that guy's got late life on his fastball, or he can really pitch up in the zone. All of these numbers and data is giving us is it's just quantifying things, right? So it's quantifying things that we've known for years. So that late life fastball, or somebody that seems to have a ton of success up in the zone, he might be a high spin rate fastball guy, you know, with a high Bauer unit output or whatever it might be. A sinker guy, you know, he steps on, he's a sidewinder, whatever it may be. We've got a few of them that have to really pitch their way through lineups rather than blowing it by guys. So if you're a true sinker slider type pitcher and your spin rate can tell you that, you might be only at 15 or 1600, but you're getting a whole lot of horizontal depth, and you don't really want too much vertical depth, you know.
So you can read the numbers, and a kid might think, you know, oh, this is who I am. But then you read the numbers, and you're able to say, actually, that's not who you are. This is what you do better, and we're going to now change the type of pitcher you are.
I don't like to say this is the type of guy you are, or we're going to change you, because I'm really big on pitchers and all players having a real autonomy in their career. But especially when a guy comes in as a freshman, it might be, hey, I'm a power pitcher, I get it by guys. That's because you were facing high school lineups, and your 86 to 88 looked like 100. When you get to this level in the A-Sun, that could be a middle reliever. You don't know that at all. And when we get to see 92 to 95 with a put away hook every weekend, that 86 doesn't look like what it used to. So just being able to understand with guys and hopefully get through to them on a deeper level that, hey, that 86 always worked, but look at the metrics of it, right? So let's go back to the basics. This is what Rapsodo data that we use so often in all of our bullpens, all of our live. But this is what the data is telling us. And early on in your freshman year, fall, I'll pull you in, and we do a whole lot of one-on-one meetings, come into kind of a makeshift pitching lab that we've been able to create. And I say, hey, this is what our spin rates look like. This is what our efficiencies look like. Why are we pitching up in the zone, down in the zone? Should we be more of a east-west kind of guy? And trying to just maximize output by making the most of what you have, because there's been a ton of research put into it that it's really hard to naturally create spin, to increase spin rate without doing things that are a little shady. So
what would you like to see? So you've watched the evolution, and you've kind of been a part of technology in baseball since the beginning. Trying to be a forward thinker, where do you think technology can go and improve the game even more so than what it's already done?
There's been so many developments in the last 5 or so years. And the game has changed for better or worse. It's kind of turned into that adapt or die kind of thinking that you need to at least embrace it and do what you can with the numbers and data that you can produce. For me, I think the real next step and the biggest change from coaches that might understand the data to thinking they understand the data is how they communicate it, right? So every player learns in a different fashion, right? Some guys can see it on the board, understand what's going on. They know what these numbers are. You get some guys that have never seen a Rapsodo or a TrackMan unit before. So you've got to go back to the basics and get through to them on a deep level where these are what these numbers mean. So every coach in the world can look at their Rapsodo and say, hey, you spin the ball 2,000 RPMs on your fastball. That's great. That's the data that we have. But how you use that to their advantage and how you make the student athlete understand it as opposed to just telling them is the next frontier. And, you've been out on the road, and we know what the recruiting circuit is like, that coaches talk, right? So you understand who kind of has a feel for things and who might not, or who's trying to learn. Right. And there's nothing wrong with not knowing, but in this adapt or die kind of universe that we're living in baseball, that you have to be willing to change and learn. So
do you think that technology is going to get to the point where it quantifies it, but then it also does your job in some sense of coaching and teaching what you not the coaches, like right now you're interpreting the data, right?
Correct.
In that sense. Right now, it's just spitting out data to you. Do you think the technology can get to the point where it also analyzes it and puts it almost in a text form or some, it helps a player understand what those numbers mean without necessarily, them needing to be explained in the coaches meeting?
Yeah, I think eventually that it will be that. Honestly, I hope it's not too soon for my own sake.
Well, I don't think this is an industry where you ever replace the coach, but you get what I'm saying. Like, can technology get to that point where it's not just giving you the data, it's also teaching you the player?
I do. I think that that's the next logical step too in the transition of where tech is going. Um, there's only so many things that we can measure. So these things are coming out every year, every month, whatever it is, that this is a new unit or technology that we can use and capitalize on. But logically, you still need somebody to do all of the interpretation. So I wouldn't be shocked at all if in the next 2-3 years we have something that, you know, combining what a drive line does, what the great stuff that you can just see on Twitter nowadays. From you'd be amazed at how many guys I see on the flat ground apps and things like that get guys publicity, but maybe that next step is you send video into somewhere, they shoot it back at you in 20 minutes. That this is what you need to do. This is what your pitchers would benefit from.
Right. I do see companies out there that are starting to go that route. Do you think technology, do you think one day, I would imagine one day we'll get so good to the point that this technology that right now teams are paying so much money for is going to be readily available and easily accessible for an affordable price to the average high school player?
Yeah, I do, and I really think that it's already starting to happen. You've seen, maybe they're not a stalker, but you see that pocket radar coming out all the time. In recruiting videos, in every dad's backpack that goes and watches a game, because it's affordable and it's not a $1,500 stalker that you have to go see talent. And
it matches up perfectly to the stalker, because I hold mine up next to you guys who are holding stalkers. And I'm like, says the same thing as yours.
Yeah, I mean, I think they correlate pretty closely. You might get a click or two off here and there, but it does the job. And from the other side of things, I think I think tech, we've got to be careful. As much as I embrace it and I use it as much as hopefully any coach, there's no replacement for that human interaction. So it really is a balance of how you can get through to guys and what the best way to treat each individual is, as opposed to just these are your numbers and trust them, right? It's great for quantifying things. Don't get me wrong. I love it. Being able to put numbers on things and use it to your advantage. And theoretically, if it's not helping you become a better coach, then you're the one falling behind. So, and then just matching that up with teaching feel and learning each guy individually and personally is the real sweet spot.
Have you had any experiences? I know Wake Forest was showing me some of the prototype stuff of the baseballs that you can throw, and it will Bluetooth will spit out analytic, spin rate and things like that. Have you had any experience with those things yet and looking at them?
I would love to. I'd love to try one if anybody's.
Oh, well, I'll hook you up. Have you seen those yet?
I have, yeah. I've actually done some research on them. I'm really curious to see how they work and if they're accurate or if they would be usable in a practice setting.
From my understanding, they're still on their way. Like they're still on their way. Like, it is accurate to a certain point, a certain velocity, a certain distance away, but it's on its way. And I think that, like, that's what I'm talking about when you talk about like a high school kid or being able to have access to constantly go out back their house. What's my spin rate, and adjust grips and things like that.
I think that would be a huge step in what high school kids can do. Hell, I'd love it for our guys right now. Everybody that's stuck at home during quarantine, all of our guys have a pretty good idea because we use reports from Rapsodo and things like that to understand what kind of pitcher we are, so it can help us work on things and build skills that really match up to what our bodies can do. So if they know that they're a 1950 to 2000 spin rate on every good four-seam fastball they throw, if they had a ball that could tell them that when they're playing catch in their backyard with dad right now, that'd be a huge thing for us.
I think of it as also looking at it like from a college standpoint. What if you can have five guys throwing a bullpen at once and you're getting all that data at the same time? You know, like,
Yeah. From a coaching point of view, time management is one of the hardest things we deal with. And not just facility wise, but mounds, catchers, live hitters, whatever it may be. Because we try to do a ton of competition and live action to simulate game speed as best we can. So worrying about that is hell one of the hardest things we do. So if that were a real thing where we could have all four tunnels rolling with guys going, and we have more than just our single or double Rapsodo, we have a ball that can tell us the same stuff, that'd be great.
Coach Deleo, I didn't know how this was going to go. I mean, I'm certainly no professional here, but this is one of the most impressive and enjoyable interviews, and I truly mean that yet. And I think, for whatever it's worth, you have a super bright future ahead of you, man. And anybody who's watching this is going to know that. So thanks for coming on today, and really, really well done, bud.
Thank you very much. I appreciate the time.